Hey everyone, welcome back to the video, and in this video we're going to be doing what if France decides to form an empire. So France also has been invaded in both world wars. So what if France decides that they had enough of that and that they decide to go imperial? So the first thing that they would do is is to try to annex the Benelux region, and then which Luxembourg accepts, but these two don't. And then with the army already in the front line of Belgium, they already get annexed, and so does the Netherlands. So with this annexation, the world is in shock, and Germany is already getting prepared just in case they get invaded. And then they decide to go over to Italy and send them an ultimatum for annexing this island, Sardinia, but the Italians refuse, and then the French decides to do nothing about it. So what they do is go over to South America and they decide to go into war with I think it was Suriname and Guyana, probably. I don't know, but they decided to declare war on both of them. And then with the French troops advancing from French Guiana, they decided to go on, and then eventually Suriname falls, and then so does Guyana. I think I might have switched them both up. I don't know, but correct me in the comments, but both of them fall. And then let's look at the peace treaty. So here we see full annexation of the two countries in South America. So France decides to go up north into Europe again, and then they decided to become allies with Poland. And then they presented the idea that what if they invaded Germany on both sides, and then that's what they do. They declare war on Germany, and then with the German troops already stationed at the French border, they start advancing into France. And then, but Germany forgot about the Benelux region, so the French invade Germany in the north, and then soon Poland decides to join, and then eventually weakening a lot of the German part, and then eventually Berlin is captured, making the troops that wanted to go back. And then they leave the French area to protect their Berlin. They push the Poles out of Berlin, separating them, and then wiping the north part, and then pushing the south back. And then the French troops are already advancing, cutting them off. And then soon Poland joins back again. And then Berlin falls again. And then soon Germany surrenders. So let's look at the peace treaty. So here's the peace treaty with Germany. So Poland annexing the east to German, while France annexing the west part. So with this, they decided to go down to Austria, and then they declare war. And then soon Austria soon surrenders, and then eventually they get annexed. So with this, they have Switzerland fully encased except the southern part. So they go over to Slovenia, annexed, and then because of that ultimatum France sent to Italy, they're still mad about that, so they declare war on Italy. So with the French already advancing into Sardinia, fully capturing it, and then Sicily, the French start advancing in the south, in the Italian peninsula, and then soon the north start going down, and then doing any big encirclement in the Italian peninsula. And then soon, Italy surrenders. So let's look at the peace treaty. So here we see a full annexation in the northern part of Italy while leaving the southern part alone, and also annexing Sardinia. So with this, Switzerland fully encased, they decided to declare war on Switzerland. And then eventually Switzerland gives in, and then they get annexed. So what they do next is go over to the Czech Republic and Slovakia, and then they just annex them without any word. And then soon, realizing this, they could go after more in the Balkans, but they decide to go after Poland. And then eventually they start a full-scale invasion into the Polish area. And with the Polish not ready, they lose their German territory, and then soon Warsaw falls, and then Poland surrenders. So let's look at the peace treaty. So here's the peace treaty with Poland, and we see full annexation. So what they decide to do now is to go down into the Iberian Peninsula, and they decided to declare war on Andorra, Spain, and Portugal. So Andorra just easily gets ran over by the French, and then starts an invasion into Spain. Spain, unprepared for the war, they lose a lot of territory, but with the Portuguese also coming in to help Spain, they are into a stalemate. But then eventually the French breaks the stalemate, and then they go down to the coastal areas, and then soon Gibraltar is invaded, Sevilla falls, and then eventually Madrid falls. But because of the Gibraltar was invaded, that brings the UK into the war. So with the UK already into the war, they decide to send troops down to France in the northern part, and then soon Spain surrenders. And then with Portugal alone, they also surrender. And then with this, they could now focus on the British, and then soon they push the Brits out, and then start any invasion. And then soon London is captured, Wales falls, England falls, and then Scotland falls. And then with Northern Ireland free, they leave the war. So let's look at the peace treaty. So here's the peace treaty. Here we see Andorra, Spain, and Portugal being fully annexed by France. And then in the British Isles, England and Wales gets annexed by the French, while Scotland and the Northern Ireland is released. But then soon Northern Ireland was annexed by Ireland, and then Scotland is still remain free, but with the price of losing a little bit of their territory. So with this, France decides to declare war on Russia by invading Kaliningrad, and then which brings Russia into the war. So with Belarus getting dragged into the war as a Russian puppet, they started sending troops through Belarus, and then France was expecting this, so then they start invading. And then with this, Belarus falls over to the French, and then with the Russians liberating parts of Belarus, and then soon they're into a stalemate. And then with this, they decided to invade Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, which makes a very easy pathway for Russia, for the French. And then soon a spearhead goes over to Moscow, and then another spearhead goes down to Ukraine, eventually cutting them off, and then eventually this part of Russia and the rest of Belarus fall, while also capturing Moscow. So the first time, the French was able to defeat Russia. So now let's look at the peace treaty. So here's the peace treaty. We see the Baltics and Belarus getting fully annexed, while Russia being forced to release Siberia, and the European part of Russia gets puppeted by France. So they could attack more countries, but they decide to go after one more country, and that is Denmark. With the Danish not fully prepared for this war, the Danish already surrender. So let's look at the peace treaty. So here's the peace treaty with Denmark. Here we see full annexation once again. So the French could stop here, but they decided to go for a few more countries. So they decide to go with but first they need more allies. So they go over to the Balkans, and then they ask Romania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Bulgaria, and Hungary, while also declaring war on Croatia, Serbia, Montenegro, Kosovo, North Macedonia, and Albania. So with this, with the Serbian troops already at their border with Bosnia and Herzegovina, they go all in and invade them, making them fall. And then with already at their border with Bulgaria, they start invading Bulgaria, and then eventually their capital falls, making Bulgaria surrender. And then at the border with Romania, Bucharest also falls, and then Romania surrender. And then with this, Hungarian and the French troops decided to go in for Romania, liberating the northern part, and then soon capturing Belgrade, making Serbia surrender, which makes Bosnia and Herzegovina liberate and Romania and Bulgaria liberated, and then North Macedonia surrenders, so does Kosovo, Montenegro, and then Albania decides to leave the war, and then with Croatia fully outnumbered, they also surrender. But then they also decide to declare war on Moldova, and then they also surrender. But since they're here, fully surrounded by the Russian puppet, France, and their allies, they decided to declare war on Ukraine. So with the Ukraine fully surrounded by the enemy, they also surrender. So let's look at the peace treaty. Here's the peace treaty in the Balkans. So Albania got nothing since they left the war. Croatia and Serbia and Montenegro got annexed by Bosnia and Herzegovina, while Bulgaria annexed the Kosovo and North Macedonia. Over here in Romania, they also annexed Moldova and the rest of Ukraine, while Hungary and Romania have any border dispute along this part. So with France coming in to help, they decide to ask Romania to give Hungary their claims in their territory, which is this part, and they decide to give this part up to Hungary. In response, they give this part to Romania. So with the Romanian deciding that this could be a good deal, they decide to accept the offer, giving Hungary Transylvania and letting Romania annex the rest of Ukraine. While the French was going to annex northern Ukraine, they decided to give it to Romania. So here's the Balkans, and here's the French Empire. So hopefully y'all liked the video, and I'll see y'all in the next one.